Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Crumpets, Tea and Sewing. I am T, and in today's video I am going to be showing you how I make my bias tape. So
hello everyone, thank you for tuning in to my channel. My name is Tamika Ray Grover and this is my channel, Crumpets, Tea and Sewing.
Okay, so for this project you will need the following tools: a straight edge ruler, a marking tool, preferably a water-soluble marker. I use this Mark Beacon, and I purchased it from Joann's Fabric. Pinking shears or scissors. Fabric of your choice that is long enough to go around either the hem or the armhole or the neck, around the neck of the garment that you're sewing. I typically go with around 18 to 20 inches because that is usually the length that will cover my armhole or the neck hole. And for the hem, I just measure the length of the hem, and then I go with that measurement. I usually give myself about 1 to 2 inches of room, so I add 1 to 2 inches on to whatever the length of the bottom of my hem is. I also use this Best Press. It is a starch solution, and it's really good for helping you to make sure you get a really great crease in your bias tape. You would need a really nice heavyweight iron. I use this Rowenta iron. Well, right now this is the iron that I'm using. It is a little bit older. I purchased this one from the Goodwill for about $5. The iron that I usually use is a different Rowenta. It has a better sole plate. Like this one has a great sole plate, but I like my other one better. And that's about it. Those are the materials you need to make bias tape. You're going to take your fabric and you're going to position it as if you were about to lay down pattern pieces, and you're going to lay it on the long end of the fabric. So you want the long end of the fabric to be laying just like this. And when you measure for your bias tape, you want to measure diagonally like that. So I start off by just placing marks from the top of the fabric, and then I go all the way down to the other side of the fabric so that I have one long diagonal line. And so that is basically on the bias. When you have a diagonal line like that, that's the bias. Okay? And then I measure from either side of this line 1 inch or 2 inches out, depending on how thick I want my bias tape to be. I will measure that about 2 inches out. Normally I just do 1 inch, and I will place that mark. And then sometimes I will do just a couple of marks just so that I can be more accurate when I am drawing my line. And then I take my ruler and I make that line. So now I have 2 diagonal lines going all the way from one end of the fabric, I apologize for the lighting, to the opposite end of the fabric. So after I have made those marks, then I will cut that shape out. Now I did do this with both pieces of the fabric facing one another, and because I did that, I have 2 strips of fabric that are cut on the bias. Okay. Now for the purposes of this tutorial, these bias strips are very short, so not very long at all. Ideally, as I stated before, you want to have your strips long enough to cover the area that you want to put the bias tape around. So these strips might be good for maybe a project for a child's garment, but for an adult size garment, I doubt that I would be able to use this. But again, this is just for the purposes of this tutorial. So after the bias strips are all cut out, now we need to fold them. So you can do what's called a single fold or a double fold. So normally I like to fold my bias strips in half. So on one side, I will fold it in half like that. I would press both sides after folding them in half. So I will demonstrate that here in a minute. Okay, so you would take your first piece of fabric and you would fold this halfway in the middle of the fabric and press, and you would do that and go all the way down the bias strip, turning your fabric over and meeting it halfway in the center of the fabric. And just go all the way down. And we would do the same thing for the other side and press. Bias tape pressed on both sides of the fabric where you turn the fabric in on both sides, meeting halfway in the middle. You will then take the fabric and turn it over one more time like this, and you will press that going all the way down the length of the fabric. So once you've done that, you will have something that looks like this. And when you turn open the bias tape, you will see that there's two parts of the fabric that are turned in to meet the middle or the center of the fabric. And when it folds over, both sides will be on the right side of the fabric. So that's how I make my bias tape without using any tools. Now you can buy the bias maker tool from your local craft store. Those are always really great, but when you don't have it on hand, this is also very effective, and it's not expensive because sometimes those little tools can be expensive, but you can definitely do it by yourself without having the aid of a bias tape maker, and it will come out just lovely if you do it as well. All you need is a bit of practice. Okay, so thank you for tuning into my channel, and remember to like this video and give it a thumbs up if you really found it informative, and make comments below. Tell me how you make your bias tape, and if you've ever made bias tape before, and if you like it, or if you just like going to the store and purchasing your bias tape from the store. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you would like to receive notifications of my sewing makes and the sewing tips that I share on this channel. Okay, so thanks for tuning in to the channel, and God bless.